Once again, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this session today, Practice Transformation, highlighting innovative anti-poverty practices from the learning community. I am Tiffany Marley and have had the pleasure to serve as the project director for the learning community for the past 2 years. And today is a very, very exciting day for me because I am joined by wonderful colleagues who have been deeply engaged in our work within the learning community, and they are going to be sharing with you today about what has happened as a result of their work and effort. And so thank you again for joining us. And just to give those of you who are not aware a little information about the Learning Communities Resource Center itself, the way I like to put it is our charge has been to build the network's capacity so that we can all fight poverty more effectively and adequately address the causes and the conditions of poverty. And so we, as we have done this work, have grounded our frame and our approach in the promise of community action itself, which basically says that community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. And so, given that foundation, as we thought about the overall design for the learning community itself, we put together a frame that provided opportunities for open engagement for the network to learn about our various anti-poverty topics, as well as closed opportunities. And I'll tell you a little bit about each one of those. And so, for the most part, the open learning community groups were facilitated through our national webinar series, and hopefully everybody in this room had an opportunity over the past couple of years to participate in at least one of our national webinar presentations. Our topic areas under our open category include health intersections, poverty trends, decreasing family homelessness. In addition to our open groups, which people could basically participate in on demand, we had what was also called our closed groups, where agencies actually had to complete applications, right? So they completed applications where they talked about what their needs were as an agency related to their specific topic area, what they hoped to learn in the process. And once they submitted those applications, our team that included our staff and our subject matter experts across the topics reviewed those applications and really tried to bring some intention to who we invited to be a part of this community that would be doing this deeper work. And as a part of that, the agencies who applied had to commit to staying the course in terms of the overall process that we would facilitate for them. And so the topic areas involved in our closed or related to our closed groups included bundling services for improving outcomes or to improve outcomes, trauma-informed approaches for alleviating poverty, financial empowerment, results at the community level, and rural impact. And so for each of the groups, each of our learning community groups within that closed domain, so to speak, they were all going through a process. And that process actually started with what we call the formation phase, whereby each of the agencies spent a lot of time getting to know one another and also about the demographics of each other's agency and what that identified need was as it related to their long-term efforts within the learning community. Another key part of that process or that point in our process was to quickly expose agencies to what we call the goal planning process. And I saw Barbara Mooney walk in the door. She was one of our subject matter experts, and really she inspired for us the goal planning process, because that process aligned very closely to what we all know as the results-oriented management and accountability process. And so as we think about how Roma speaks to identifying the need, then understanding what the possible outcomes might be, and then strategies, and then the other parts of that process, the goal plan mapped directly to Roma, so that as the agencies were thinking about what strategies or what goals they would set for themselves, it was still in line with our overall performance management process as a network, because at the end of the day, our goal was to empower agencies or build their capacity so that they could improve their outcomes for the families that they served. And so, to make a long story short, in addition to having that exposure to the goal plans and getting technical assistance related to those, agencies had an opportunity to take a very deep dive within their various topic areas during what we called our knowledge building phase. And then after they learned about the research and best practices and all those things, we gave them an opportunity to think more specifically about, so what is it that my agency might do? What might be our experiment, so to speak, as it relates to what we have learned related to this topic, which brought them to the piloting phase, where they tested out some of those practices and just began to do the work. Because that was the big thing. We wanted to provide the agencies with that support to do their work and to give them opportunities to come back together, to offer peer advice, and also to seek our advice as technical assistance providers. And then the final phase is called practice transformation. And this is the phase that makes me the most excited, because the people that you see here and the people that you will hear from today, I truly regard them as your peer experts as it relates to these topic areas, and they have been very generous through our national webinar series and even through our presentation today and the many conference sessions during our conference this week to tell you what those lessons learned are related to trauma-informed approaches or related to bundling services. And so that is the essence of it, and so we're excited that you're going to have this opportunity to hear from them. And very quickly, I want to acknowledge all of the agencies who have participated in the learning community during the past 2 years. And so if your agency has participated, we would like for you to stand at this time. Please stand. Let's give these folks a round of applause. There are several. There were 2 slides. Sorry about that. And then we wanted to give special recognition to some individuals within these agencies who we have recognized as anti-poverty pace setters, because truly you all have stayed the course in terms of all of your innovations related to these anti-poverty topics within your agency and with the network, because you've gone through the whole process. And so if all of our pace setters would stand at this time, everybody who is up on the dais, and if you see your name listed, so I'm not going to call everybody's name specifically, if you would please stand and let's be recognized. Thank you. You may be seated. So at the conclusion of today's session, we have certificates for all the agencies that were recognized, as well as the individuals. So you can pick up your certificates right outside after today's session. So at this time, I'm going to pass the baton on to my colleague, Courtney Kohler. She's going to talk a little bit about change, because, ultimately, our hope is to help people and change lives and there's a strategy with that. So Courtney, take over.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tiffany. So I'm Courtney Kohler. I'm a senior associate with the Community Action Partnership. And really today what we're talking about through these presentations is change and transformation. And so we know based on the needs in our community that change is necessary. And, it's unacceptable for people to continue to live in poverty generation after generation or just through a situational time. And so this learning community project is really about kind of sparking that change and starting that process of developing innovative, promising anti-poverty practices. And so change, whenever you think about change, it can be depicted through pictures. So if you're looking at this process of a caterpillar transforming into a beautiful butterfly, think of that as change and as transformation. And so that's really what we're here to celebrate today. We're here to celebrate progress, and we're here to celebrate the transformation that has taken place in agencies across the country, as well as in the communities and through families who have benefited from these promising practices. And so transformation can be defined as a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. And so as you listen to these presentations today, you're going to hear of that transformation. And we really hope that these presentations kind of ignite and spark your thinking towards innovation and those promising practices that you might be able to do in your agency, that you might be able to nudge forward, something you've already started. It might get you thinking about those things that you can do to really, further that impact for the communities and the families that you all serve. And so these presenters here today, they're going to deliver 5-minute presentations each. So don't be intimidated by the fact that there's several up here. We'll still get you out within the hour. But we have several presenters with us here today. You're going to hear 6 different presentations, all related to the closed learning community groups that Tiffany talked about. And so we have from Enrichment Services Program in Georgia, we have Belva Dorsey and Angel Walker. We also have Lori Cunningham from Baltimore City Community Action Partnership. We have Corin Turbety and Robin Thibodeau from West Cap in Wisconsin. And then we have a couple other presenters that are going to be coming up here shortly, but we have Jennifer Carter, who's at the end from Greater Lawrence Community Action Council in Massachusetts. And then we have Christy Hoke from Highland County Community Action Organization that's going to be presenting on rural impact. And then we have a statewide highlight that's going to be talking about the relationship between the state CSBG agency and the local agency and what was able to be done to help the process of bundling services in a local agency. And so we're really excited to present these to you today. We have a lot of great presenters that worked on these presentations for the past couple months. And so thank you all for being here today. We will actually take a few questions at the end if the time permits. So if you do have questions as you go throughout, please jot those down on your notepads, and we can try to take a couple questions at the end. We're also going to have a few workshops that relate to some of these presentations throughout the conference that I'll go over at the end, and so that might be another opportunity for you to learn more about these. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to our first presenter from Enrichment Services Program.
Good afternoon. We are so honored to have this opportunity to share with you information about our learning that took place as a part of the Bundling Services learning community. I am Belva Dorsey, the CEO for Enrichment Services Program, and I'm joined by Angel Walker, who is our program director of our Community Services Department. Our central office is located in Columbus, Georgia. We serve 9 counties, 8 counties in Georgia, 1 county in Alabama, just right across the river. And our core services fit into 4 categories: education, employment training, stabilizing services, and family strengthening services. And so on an annual basis, we serve about 6,000 people. Angel?
Thank you, Ms. Dorsey. So the learning group that we participated in is the Bundling Services to Improve Outcomes Learning Community Group. We actually participated in Phase 1 and Phase 2 of this particular learning group. Our project is called the Integrated Service Delivery Approach. So with this approach, we want to operate as a unified agency. Using the mantra from the movie Drumline, we wanted to operate as one band, one sound. So we joined the learning community because we wanted to learn from our peers and experts about the best services to help families to become self-sufficient. And we also wanted to share our experience with others and also with the network. So our motivation for working on this particular anti-poverty topic is because 21% of our population is in poverty. So we wanted to identify the combination or bundling of services that will result in more families reaching self-sufficiency. So our goal in the beginning was to move 500 families towards self-sufficiency and 15 families to self-sufficiency over a 3-year period. So the first step that we took was to implement a unified database. So this would allow us to track our customers as an agency, as a whole, and not as a department or in silos. So the second step was to identify those target families that we were going to be able to have a deep touch with. And the third step was to involve the staff by obtaining their input and feedback on this new integrated service delivery approach. Y'all like my little picture right there? So as expected, we did experience some resistance in the beginning.
Going through this process, we did have to make some shifts and some adjustments. And so one of the major changes that happened, or major shifts, was the way that our team members referred to our customers. For many years, our team members would say, this is our Head Start customer, or this is our commodity customer. Well, no, it's really Enrichment Services Programs customer. So that is a shift that we had to make. We also learned that this is a journey and it takes time. Initially, we were thinking, oh, well, in the first year, we'll accomplish all these goals and, we'll be finished with this whole process. Well, that's one thing that I'll just put out there for anybody who's thinking about going through a transformation, and many of you who have already been through a transformation, it does take time. But in the end, it is worth it. Two of the major changes that took place, you heard Angel mention our unified tracking system. And so we have moved away from 2 separate systems. I won't name them because for Head Start grantees, many of you are probably still using that database system. But we moved away from that database system, and now we're using one throughout the organization. We also made a change with our intake. So instead of customers going to a Head Start center to apply for services or a community services center to apply, now they all come through our neighborhood service center. We have experienced success. So earlier you heard Angel mention that we set a goal to move 500 families towards self-sufficiency and 15 to self-sufficiency over a 3-year period. Well, we are very excited that over this 3-year period, we were able to move over 700 families towards self-sufficiency and 17 to self-sufficiency. Thank you. Thank you. And that was because of the efforts of everybody working together. And when we talk about self-sufficiency, we're talking about customers being able to take care of their basic needs without any public and private assistance. And then we also want them to have a savings as well. So when we think about our overall process, we think about integration and really what integration means. And so we want all of you to know, anybody who's thinking about starting this journey, that it is possible to move away from silos. It's very difficult sometimes, but it is possible. And so as a result of this process, we believe that we are going to continue to see more families who are thriving, And as a result of more thriving families, we'll see more thriving communities. So a couple of our next steps include finalizing our bundling services report so that we're able to track how many families are receiving two or more services really, and then what their outcomes are compared to a family only receiving one service. And then we also want to be able to capture our partners' information for some of those common customers so that we can really be able to recognize our collective impact that we're having within our communities. So the thought that we'll leave with you is that as you're planning and preparing for services, think about the impact that you want to make. A lot of times, I know with us, when we're sharing information with our boards, we may want to tell them, we're going to serve 5,000 people. But are you truly having an impact with those 5,000 people? Sometimes we have to focus more on the impact and the quality versus the quantity. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So my name is Lori Cunningham. I serve as the Executive Director for the Baltimore City Community Action Partnership. We are a part of the Mayor's Office of Human Services, and our learning group was financial empowerment with a focus on families. Our program has 4 focus areas: food, nutrition, housing and energy, financial literacy, and case management. So what we focused on was integrating financial capability services into our Baltimore City Community Action Partnership intake process. What we found, it was very difficult for us to convince not only our staff but also our clients to take part in the financial literacy education component. When folks, as you all know, are coming to you for a crisis, they usually want to address that specific crisis and then they want to leave. Getting them to get involved in all the other services that would help to prevent that crisis or another crisis down the line usually is a bit daunting. And for our staff, it was very difficult for them sometimes to realize the importance of integrating that financial literacy component when they were trying to focus on addressing the current need of the crisis for that particular household or family. So our program was established in 1965. We've gone through several iterations, but we've been around for quite some time, and we also have staff that's been around for that entire time. We serve approximately 40,000 households annually, and we have a declining population right now of 622,793 people. And our main focus, of course, what we're doing is self-sufficiency. So when we looked at why did we join the learning community, one of the first things was we were so excited to be able to have this opportunity because we knew one of the areas where we needed to specifically focus on was financial literacy or capability. We've had success with our existing program, but we knew in order to really make that move towards self-sufficiency, it was important that we would expand that program, not only with ourselves and our existing program, but with our partners as well. So we joined the learning community group, and our goal was really to learn from our peers, see what other folks were doing, what was working for them, what commonalities they had with their organization that we had, what were some of the partnerships or grant opportunities that they applied for. And one of the things with the timing that we were really excited about, and I don't know if anyone else had applied for this or intended to, was the individual development account grant. And I'll get to why that was a challenge a little bit later. So if we look at the makeup of Baltimore City, we have a 23.8% poverty rate, a median income of $41,000. A third of Maryland households do not have any safety net whatsoever, and that number is actually higher in Baltimore City. We have 13.9% of our population that is unbanked and a staggering 25.4% that were underbanked. Even when we were working with our Youth Works program, we noticed that many of the youth did not want to deposit or cash their checks in a traditional banking. They wanted to go to the local store, or they were giving it to their parents, so they weren't becoming bankable themselves, and that proved to be a bit of a challenge for us. And so then we looked at what are our goals. And being in Philadelphia, one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was establishing a financial empowerment center within Baltimore City, and also utilizing our partners to establish that FEC. Then we wanted to make financial capability services be a standard. We wanted to make sure that no matter which center that you came to, no matter which service you were interested in, that we were able to integrate financial capability into that particular need. And then to improve the quality and quantity of our Your Money, Your Goals workshops. For the past couple of years, we've been facilitating workshops in the morning presentations for Your Money, Your Goals. Initially, we did it as evening workshops. People could sign up to participate from 6 to 7:30 p.m. for a 6-week session. And it went well, but we also found once you got to those colder months, people were less likely to want to be able to stay for those evening presentations. So we said, well, how can we make sure you get it no matter what? And we began integrating it into our morning presentations. Usually we find that people are coming to our centers when we open at 8:30, and they're signing up and they're there for the bit of the day. It's not as if people staggered through the office throughout the day, so we knew that we could capture everyone at that specific time. And then we wanted to add the IDA program and a financial empowerment program manager, and decrease the underbanked and unbanked population within the city. So our first step was networking and knowledge building. We have a lot of great partners, Maryland Cash, Operation Hope, several groups that are in our area that might be focusing on different facets of financial capability. So we wanted to look beyond Baltimore City, and we participated in a conference in Chicago on financial education with a specific focus on college students. We participated in another conference in Columbia, Maryland, and we also participated in receiving the technical assistance with Prosperity Now, formerly CFED, and of course by being a Learning Network participant. The second thing that we did is we knew that we had to develop documents that would better help us in integrating the conversation, not only for staff, but as well as for customers. So we utilized the financial capability scales, and also we developed the referral plans. And what the financial capability scales allowed us to do was really integrate that conversation at intake, so that we were asking those questions while we were conducting intake. It didn't really give staff or the clients the opportunity to feel like it was a separate program that they could bypass. It was a part of the natural intake process if you were going to receive any services. And then the next thing we did is establish the referral plan. What the referral plan helped us to do is, once we've learned what the needs were of each specific household, then we could establish a referral for either programs or services that we had within our Community Action Partnership centers, or for external referrals to partners that we had that were providing programs that we did not have. The next thing that we saw is we really weren't focusing on youth. Of our 5 centers, we have 1 center that's located within a recreation center, and we have a separate entrance for our center. But other than that, traditionally we're seeing the parents of the households, we're not seeing younger people. And so we thought it's really important in ending that generational cycle is to make sure that we focus on youth and to see what we could do. So we formed a partnership with Morgan State University in Baltimore City, and we also partnered with our Mayor's Office of Employment Development that provides our workforce and does our Summer Youth Works program. And we served 800 students on the campus of Morgan State University by providing financial literacy education to all students coming through Youth Works, as well as to any Baltimore City resident. But in addition to that, we took advantage of them being on a college campus, and we provided a College 101 workshop to get kids thinking about how do they apply for college, what do they need to do, but then the cost of college. That sticker was really something that was very shocking for kids, and so we got the kids really focused on driving those conversations as far as focusing on how do I graduate without having any debt or having low debt. The kids didn't know about loans, they didn't know about the expenses, and so that was something that was really helpful. And we've expanded that program, and we served over 8,000 kids this summer. Then, of course, with anything new and transformational that you're doing, you're going to have challenges, and we had several. One of the big things that we talked about was incentivizing the customers that we were working with. Some of the customers that we're serving, unfortunately, have been coming to us for years, so they're as familiar with some of our services and our process as we are. So really incentivizing them to take part in this new intake process and understanding that this was the way to be able to get any additional services. And then scarce resources. So we had this grandiose idea that we were going to apply for the IDA program. We got partners with several of the universities in Baltimore. We had partners with PNC. Everyone wrote these wonderful letters for us. We just knew that we were going to have a great program. We were able to get a couple $100,000 in general fund dollars. We were doing housing counseling, and then, of course, the rug was pulled out from under us, and we weren't able to do that anymore. Because the funding was gone. And then we had to shift our program focus. So initially we thought we were going to intake through our Office of Home Energy programs. And then we said, nope, can't do that. We need to focus on all of our centers. So we decided to expand it through all of our centers. And then we saw that clients really face similar issues. It just manifested differently. And so we found that most people were having issues with housing or energy costs or the financial burden or unemployment or poor credit. And so we aimed to make sure that all our clients were able to access in the same way. And then next for us was our success. So if we looked at our success, the intake scales, the referral plans, and the improved workshops, and the increase in the VITA services, we were able to go from 4 sites to 5 sites and included weekend and evening hours, and then doing year-round services. And then, as I mentioned, the 8,000 youth, partnerships with other organizations within the city, and then staff confidence, making sure that they understood the intake process and also that they were more confident in delivering the curriculum. And of course, with network and flexibility is to be open and receptive to change. Like I said, we hit a few bumps in the road, but we were really pulling on our staff and our customers and the network to provide that direction. And so we realized we've got to make a few changes, and it really helped. The community and family impact. All CAP clients received the education. Thousands of youth were able to receive the direct impact from the program and the continuity of services through the referral plans. So our next steps are increasing our funding opportunities with applications and partnerships with area banks. The FDIC partnership expansion, so in addition to Your Money, Your Goals, we've also added the FDIC's Money Matters curriculum, and the economic empowerment series that we're doing with the FDIC for Baltimore City, and then establishing more youth programs, and one is the tour with the FDIC so that kids get introduced to financial careers, but also learn how the FDIC works. And then networking. We really had to make sure that we reduced any of the barriers that existed and that we opened up our market to all partners, and we found a lot of success through that. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Hello, I'm Robin Thibodeau, and I'm the Associate Director at WestCap, and this is Corin Tuberty, and she is our Homeless Prevention Programs Manager. So WestCap serves 7 rural counties in west central Wisconsin, covering about 5,300 square miles. Our largest city is only 16,000, and we serve about 25,000 individuals a year. We joined the Trauma-Informed Approaches to Alleviating Poverty Learning Community. Our intention was to become a trauma-informed agency and a role model for the other social service agencies in our communities.
We started on this journey when Robin approached myself and another coworker asking us if we wanted to join this learning community group as a way to increase our agency's ability to provide better service to our program participants.
So what we had recognized was that our clients were not always receiving good customer service, and direct service staff felt burned out and not supported. So the direct service staff was not always giving good customer service and responding to clients in a respectful manner, especially when they were getting yelled at on the phone. And that led to a lot of calls being pushed up to higher levels in the agency and really using up a lot of time. So everyone deserves respect, support, and to be empowered, both clients and staff.
We had big goals for this learning community group. Our goals were to not only educate our agency staff, but to determine what steps we needed to take to become a trauma-informed agency. And then we wanted to provide education and training to other agencies in our community. And then we realized that was a lot of work and a lot of time. So we broke that down a little bit. Our first step was to train. Our team on the Learning Community Group attended as many trainings as possible on this topic. Trauma-Informed Care 101, Train the Trainer, first-person accounts of trauma-informed services. If it had to do with trauma-informed care, we were there. Our second step was to hold a kickoff event. In January of this year, we held a day-long in-service for all employees and volunteers, and we taught them about what trauma is, its prevalence in our communities, and the impact it has on the people not only that we serve, but the people that we work with and ourselves. And our third step is to, our notes say that we sent a survey to all agency employees. We will be sending a survey to all agency employees and volunteers to determine our baseline of where are we at in terms of being a trauma-informed organization and where are our areas to improve.
All right, so we had some challenges along the way. Like Corin mentioned, we started out with a core team of 3 of us. Unfortunately, we lost our cheerleader and the one who really kept Corin and I on track. She left for a different job. And then we lost key agency staff, higher level staff. A couple folks left for other opportunities, and so that reduced the amount of time that we had as the 2 folks left championing this effort to really devote to the work that needed to be done. So early on, we shifted our thinking about what we were going to do in the planning phase. We recognized that the trauma-informed care service approach needed to go beyond the case managers that were working with clients every day and the direct line staff at the front. We really wanted our entire agency and our volunteers and our board members to understand the impact of trauma for our clients.
We had several aha moments during our in-service training, realizing that trauma impacts many of us personally, recognizing that someone's behavior on the phone, such as yelling, isn't about the staff person that's talking to them, but it may be that caller's response to having a trauma worldview. And recognizing that in order to mitigate a child's trauma experience, we must address the parent's trauma. So the changes that we saw were an increase in our knowledge of trauma, an awareness of the prevalence of trauma, and also some increased trauma-informed care skills among every department in our agency. We also saw these staffing changes that Robin talked about. Some employees self-selected out of their jobs as we made this organizational shift in philosophy. Going back to the butterfly reference and caterpillars about change, have you thought about what that's like from the caterpillar's perspective? On the outside, it's fantastic and it's beautiful, but inside the chrysalis, sorry for post-lunch, but the caterpillar is digesting itself in order to become the butterfly. It sounds really painful, doesn't it? And change can be really painful. But success looks like this. These are the 4 R's of a trauma-informed approach, and what we saw within our agency is a realization of the impact that trauma has on our personal lives, an increased recognition of how trauma impacts our service users. All of our employees are starting to respond with basic trauma-informed skills, And those employees that weren't on board with this change have chosen to leave. And those who stay are open to feedback and ongoing learning so that we can resist the re-traumatization of the people we serve. Our inspiration for you is a quote from a woman named Toni Kane, who, if you ever have an opportunity to listen to her speak, I highly recommend. When a paramedic is called to someone in medical distress, the first thing they do is check for signs of life, and they start to work to resuscitate that person. Why do we give up so easily on people who are obviously still breathing? Why don't we work hard to resuscitate their lives? Where there is breath, there is hope. The possibilities we see in making these changes include all of these things. We expect to see an increase in referrals, an increase in mental health, both for our staff and the people we serve, an increase in engagement and retention, both in jobs and in our programs, and that sense of empowerment to make choices for yourself and to really be a change maker, again, both for our agency staff and the people that we serve. Our next steps are to, in addition to doing our agency surveys, to also do a client survey and see how the people we serve, their experience of our services, and are we being trauma informed in their eyes. And then also to develop our trauma champions team. We can't do the work alone, and so we really want to make sure that we have a broad cross-section from across our agency, both up and down and horizontally, championing this trauma-informed approach and this culture change within our agency.
And to leave you with a last thought, one of the first posters we saw on trauma-informed care, think before speaking. So is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And we remind people about that all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jen Carter, and I am the Director of Programs Planning and Evaluation for Greater Lawrence Community Action Incorporated, Council Incorporated, which I'll refer to as GLCAC from now on. It's very long words. Last year, we helped more than 31,000 people. We're located about 30 miles north of Boston, and as everybody here experiences, we certainly have a unique population in terms of both language and economic barriers, as well as immigration status amongst more than 90% of the clients that we are serving. So we had a real big challenge in thinking of something we could do at a community level, and that was really the reason that I wanted to join a group. So after joining the results at the community level group, one of the things that was a goal of mine was to not only learn about the skills and competencies needed to really enact and execute a good community level project with measurable results, but also how to take what I learned from other members of the group and help transform the culture of agency-wide planning at my organization to be inclusive of not just family and individual service counts, but also looking at ways to translate some of the great work we were doing into measurable community level impact. So we hope to expand the reach of housing programming to include a multi-level long-term project that would not only increase amongst families and individuals information, education about fire safety, but also ultimately enact measurable change at the community level by preventing fires, by limiting the amount of economic impact on municipal services, on local organizations that provide emergency aid, and ultimately on the state agencies that also provide aid when displacement occurs because of fires or other disasters. So these are just some of the headlines from a 3-month period in the spring of 2017. There is an inordinate amount of fires that occur in gateway cities across Massachusetts and New England and certainly in other places, and it's due to a number of factors. And one of the things that we found was that Through doing research with the help and support of data sources from the state and municipal agencies and entities, we were able to find evidence that indeed the incidents of fire and the damage of fire in the city of Lawrence and in Greater Lawrence, composing other 3 cities, was indeed greater than that of the surrounding communities. Therefore, we really did have evidence to start working on a project that would have impact at the community level. So combining the capacity of GLCAC along with complementary programs and resources from other organizations was really the best way that we can jumpstart this program so we can get the community level impact. And the unquestionable and critical need to mitigate this devastation in the community really drove the endeavor, not just from my perspective, but also from our board of directors and from all of our volunteers and all the community participants who helped us craft our programs. So over the course of this project, prepare, prevent, and preserve became the chorus for all the collaborators. And we really look to really promote this idea across all the communities. So the first thing we did was we engaged with collaborating agencies who were already starting to work in this area that had to do with fire safety, fire prevention, and that was the Red Cross. They were starting a program to do a distribution not only of educational materials for adults in multiple languages, but also to provide new carbon monoxide detectors in at least 300 homes across the cities. So we decided we would collaborate with them and participate in the activity. So the second step was we actually did participate, and overall we found that we were able to help increase the number of people who are aware of the program and also bring 100 plus families that were our clients and connect them with this specific program as part of the larger project that will be longer term. And finally, our next step really was to continue collaborating and continue to host meetings and sessions to start planning and looking towards the future and how can we continue to produce measurable results at the community level by first starting with family level interventions. The barriers that we faced are probably similar to a lot of other people's projects. Language and culture certainly is one. More than 70% of the area's residents speak a language other than English in the home. The income levels are 39%, almost 40% poverty level, with some of them in extreme poverty. And the population is well over 180,000 just from the 4 main cities and towns that we serve. So it's a lot of people, and we needed to make a big impact, and certainly capacity. We had to utilize all our different capacities in our networks and our volunteers and our advisory board members, and we also recognized that we had to look forward and outward to the community and really talk to the opinion leaders in the community so we could really bridge that trust gap and really understand how we could communicate with people better and let the people that had the community support be able to do that themselves. We broke the project down because it was very complex, and we decided we would treat each component as a separate project and look for success at each step, not just the overall success. One of the things we found is that resources existed where we didn't know they existed, and it's not always critical to get an expert or consultant, but sometimes the best experts are people that live in the community and not necessarily people that you've worked with before or have a lot of contact with. Our success was numbers, 407 families, which means 407 housing units, all of which were affordable housing, Section 8, or housing rental voucher housing, received safety implements around fire and education and in the appropriate language, and that's huge. 103 families came directly from our clients, and we were able to increase our collaborating agencies from 2 other ones to 8 more, and we have 4 things planned. And even though it was a very unusual project, everyone decided we're just going to run with it because we saw a little success and we saw some great outreach and we saw some visibility in the community. And we were really tempted to think that we only had to look in broad terms for ultimate success overall, but we decided we'd look at any small amounts of progress because those are the foundations for larger results. Short term, immediate impact, but long term, we want to be able to measure this, and we'd love it to be scalable in other cities and towns across Massachusetts. So next steps are, as everyone said, more networking, more funding, more collaboration, and more projects that we can actually get off the ground. And the thing I'd like to leave everybody with is that, you know, sometimes people talk about thinking outside the box to find creative and innovative solutions. And I'm going to say that you don't have to always think outside the box. Sometimes you need to look in the box because the ideas are there within your own organization or right in the neighborhood. So you don't always have to go outside to find success. Thank you.
Hi, Hi, I'm Christy Hauge. I'm the Director for Emergency Services and Special Projects with Highland County Community Action in southwestern Ohio. In 2015, our agency applied for and was chosen as one of 10 sites to participate in a new learning community sponsored by the White House Rural Council, the Community Action Partnership, of course, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. The community is known as Rural Impact. It's a peer learning group focused on demonstrating that service delivery, provided in an intentional two-generation approach, provides the best means to end generational poverty. Our project is two-pronged. One targets a group of 24 to 25 families with intensive strengths-based coaching that integrates services for both parents and children together. And our second prong is to develop a uniform intake process that's deployed across all programs in our agency as well as in the community. We started because this was a chance for us to look deeply at the people that we serve, the services that we offered internally and externally, and how the process was or was not meeting our agency mission. We joined like-minded communities with targeted technical assistance to look at accountability within that group to become more effective and to capitalize on the key expertise of ourselves and our partners. We wanted to look at adult and child success together and create the most impact in the most efficient and effective way. The families that we served motivated us. They kept telling us there were too many cooks in the kitchen. They were using too many of their own resources just to meet the many program guidelines, all the different locations, and they had a caseworker or two at every single stop. Our goals were to improve our effectiveness with this new 2G approach, to use the collective learning idea to really amplify trial and error through the sharing of ideas and successes as well as the failures, and to better translate the ideas of what we needed to do into actions that matter now. Our first step was to listen to clients and not to listen to understand, not to listen to respond or defend, but really to listen to hear what they had to say and understand them. Then we made the most of that and the existing resources that are out there that detail 2G programs. We made small changes internally that shifted our framework, service delivery, and our organizational culture. The process has been dynamic, and it requires a full engagement across all lines, and we make sure to document, measure, and report. We took these new ideas and processes and we turned them into action. We shifted the way services were delivered from a single siloed focus to really purpose-driven, intentional, and aligned services. We wanted to make sure that what we did targeted parents and children together always. Some of our challenges included the resistance to change, as we're all used to. This idea that outside program people needed to stay hands-off. They knew what worked for them, but if it was working just for parents or just for children. Time and capacity has been a barrier, too. We're all community action. We all wear too many hats. We're all pulled in too many directions. Our major shift has really been in moving from a side-by-side set of services to a process that really embraces a shared vision, common goals, and providing a set of streamlined services that really focus on the parent and the children at the same time, always. The most impactful aha moment that we had was hearing what wasn't working. We understood that alignment of services for all household members was key. A no wrong door entry of service had to be done, and it would avoid increased costs to us and our partners, and it would meet the families where they are with no excessive resource use by them. Our biggest changes were in strengthened partnerships with formal frameworks, as well as the more inclusive and free from judgment frontline intake system. Our frontline staff working within this 2G strengths-based model takes out their own judgment as they work with the families. We also have seen real change in the movement of families and this crisis to thriving idea. Success for us is the Smiths. When we first met with them, it was a family of 8 who lived in a 1-bedroom recreational cabin out at our state park lake. They had no jobs. They had unofficial custody of a niece that they couldn't really take care of without the legal paperwork in order. After entering our program and working with the coach, they became employed, both of them. They moved to a 3-bedroom home. The children re-engaged with the school system, and they were able to finalize true legal custody of that niece. And not only are they providing for that child now, but their entire household of 8. our agency changed for the better by being more inclusive of the generations who live in a household, every single generation, looking at needs at all points of time and points of entry. We also felt this renewed sense of energy around taking risks and understanding that success is a reward, but so is failure. You learn more there than you do with success. The possibilities for our community as a result of this experience have been a sense that there is no longer an impossible. Families become less static and find their strength to move and change. Partners have moved from their little fish bowls of service to real global thinking within the community, and our agency's been moving along the spectrum from good to better, and we hope ultimately best. Our next steps are to update our strategic plan to be very inclusive of this 2G bundling of services at all levels, both internally and externally, and we're committed to opening a second one-stop facility in an underserved area of our community. What I want to leave you with is you can't see the forest for the trees. It's even harder when you are one of those trees and you're blocking the view. We found that our program-centered mechanisms blocked the creative paths that families could take to remove their own barriers. So my advice to you is see the forest. Don't be a tree.
Hello, I'm Michelle Fields. I'm with the Tennessee Department of Human Services, and this is Cynthia Kroom with the Metropolitan Action Commission in Nashville, Tennessee. We comprise of a network of 20 community action agencies from the Mississippi Delta all the way across to the Appalachian Mountains. We were part of the Bundling Services to Improve Outcomes group.
We wanted to talk to you about the importance of a catalyst, and a catalyst is really anyone or anything that provokes or speeds significant change. We were fortunate to be that catalyst for our state CSBG department by bringing them the opportunity to participate in a two-generational model that we wanted to do as an organization. So we went to them and talked to them about the two-gen model and asked the state if they would fund a 3-year pilot for us that allowed us to focus on working with our Head Start parents using our CSBG funding.
And we developed an assessment tool that provided a holistic approach.
For us, the main thing that we had to do was eliminate silos in our organization. You cannot do this work operating simply as programs.
And for us, it was looking at developing a tiered approach through a family systems model, solution-focused approach, including principles of Roma to provide bundled services using evidence-based and promising practices.
Data-driven decision-making. We had to make sure that we were focused on outcomes for our families, not just the numbers of people we served, but being able to ensure that they were accomplishing the goals that were set.
And I needed to collaborate with my subject matter experts and partners within the Community Action Network.
First step for us, one agency, mission-driven. We got rid of the whole emphasis on programs and focused on your programs are there to serve your mission, not your mission being there to serve your programs.
And we needed to develop a data reporting system and analyze and make meaning of that data.
We talked to the state about a two-gen model that would help us work with parents as well as children in the Head Start program.
And then we started to incorporate the two-gen approach and promising practices to improve the outcomes for our customers.
Data. We had to make sure that we had data and that we could demonstrate the outcomes that we promised the state that they would see. You want me to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Challenges and barriers. One of the challenges for us very quickly was we thought we had solved the child care problem for our parents because they were parents of Head Start children. We did not recognize that they had children that were not Head Start age. So we had to use CSBG funding to provide for the child care for the children that were not Head Start age.
And some of our challenges and barriers, we're looking at the flexibility to allow flexibility for the agencies, the cultural shift, the organizational change, and the need for staff capacity.
The shift for us was moving from an emergency-driven process, as so many of us did as community action agencies, to focusing on how do we truly help parents get to self-sufficiency.
And we had to think beyond the typical beyond bundled services and the matrix and the combination of services, and go back to what Annie E. Casey Foundation said, and what it recognized is that it's about being intentional about the services and strategies that we provide. And as a part of that, then I was a part of this project for 2 years, and in the second year, I got a little stymied, but it was through one of the conversations with Barbara Mooney where she talked about the theory of change that then I went back to what I originally knew, and that was that I really needed to focus on staff capacity.
And our aha moment was we realized that we were helping parents and we were helping the children in Head Start, but Nashville was having a major issue with teen murders. And so we decided that we could move to a multi-generational approach and started to work with the teenagers also in the home of Head Starts. That resulted in not only having programs for the parents, such as the CompTIA A+ certification that allowed them to get jobs, that allowed them to be self-sufficient, but it also meant adding a youth technology camp for the teenagers that were in the homes of those Head Start families, adding a mobile diner that allowed us to make sure that we were feeding children in those communities and allowing the teenagers from the Head Start homes to serve as ambassadors on those diners, as well as participating in a number of city-related activities to improve conditions for everyone in the household, in that Head Start household, instead of just the parent and the Head Start child.
And so we leave you with this: to be the change that you want to see, and remember that we meet no ordinary people in our lives. If you give them a chance, everyone has something amazing to offer.
All right, well, thank you very much to all of the presenters today. Really appreciate you guys sharing what happened in your agencies and the success and challenges that you've had. We don't really have much time for questions. I don't want to hold you guys here whenever there's exhibitor snacks and raffles downstairs. So what you can do if you do have questions, please leave those with me on your way out. And what I'll do is I'll coordinate with the speakers, and we'll develop a question and answer sheet that can be added to the app this week. This presentation is on the app, as well as some other publications that are either on the app or up and coming. So we do have a bundled services case study that talks about enrichment services program, and there's actually a session also coming up at 3:30 in room 401 that goes into bundling services a little bit more, and there's going to be another case talked about during that time. So a couple things. Sign up for our blog. If you haven't already, lcrcweb.com. You'll get all of the updates if you're a follower. We also have a plethora of resources in our CSBG TNTA Resource Center. This is all in your app, so please, if you have questions, here's the contact info. And then there's also a list of LCRC, Learning Community Resource Center sessions that are related to these different topics we talked about today that you can attend throughout the rest of the conference. So some of them are actually going to be featuring some of these individuals, but please check out this list. It goes on for about 4 pages, so I won't go through all of it. But also definitely fill out these evaluations. So every session you attend at this conference, we're cutting down on paper. And so please go into your conference app, and in the session description, there is a link to a SurveyMonkey survey. So please go in and fill those out for each session that you attend. Thank you so much for attending today. We really appreciate it. And thank you to our speakers. And don't forget to grab your certificates on the way out if you were part of a learning community group.